Hi everybody, it's Sharon Civil again at First Executive Recruitment, part of First Group Solutions. So we've covered lots of aspects this week of making sure that you've got a great CV for when you need one, and we've looked at the beginning, the middle and the end. So today I'm kind of going to cover all the bits to think about and consider really, so that you've got that knockout CV that gets you the interview that you've been hoping for. And in no particular order, the kind of all the things to consider with your CV that range from the kind of simple and the obvious to the more careful considerations to make. Um, in terms of the more simple and obvious, it's things like ensuring your CV isn't too long. Now, we've heard that a million times, I'm sure. But if you've taken on board the suggestions from part 2 of the CV advice, then you'll know to keep a check on past duties and keep them relevant to what a company is looking for. Also, try to use their terminology that you on your CV that you've seen in an advert, and rather than your own. And sometimes we kind of mean the same thing, but when it's said in a different way, it can be easily missed. And when you do this, it'll just grab their attention a little bit more, which is what you're looking for. And this will help also massively with length if you've got a long work history, and plus you're keeping the reader's interest, which is a double whammy. The other simple thing to consider is spell checking your CV and using English spell check rather than American, and actually getting somebody else to proofread it before you put it out there. It always astounds me when I read profiles that have in it, excellent attention to detail, and then I spot a spelling mistake. And to be honest, that sentence always makes me look for mistakes. If I find them, then my take on it is that you've just used that statement as a filler just to say something positive about yourself, but it can't possibly be true, can it? Because I found a mistake. And then it leads me to think, well, what else is this person not being truthful about? So just spell check your CV to avoid all of that. Um, I'd also say to get somebody else to proofread it too. We're invariably very precious about what we've created, so it's quite hard to be objective with your own creation, and plus an extra set of eyes might spot something that you haven't. And a brilliant example of that, and I will never forget this as long as I live, is I read a CV a number of years ago, managing director, smallish engineering company, who wrote on his CV that he was responsible for ruining a £2 million a year business. What he meant to write was that he was responsible for running a £2 million a year business. Big difference, especially considering it's one letter. And that wouldn't come up on your spell check either. So the other thing that you don't need to do, that you should do really, is get somebody to proofread it, and proofread it with open eyes. You're not going to go too far wrong if you're getting somebody to do that. If you can get a couple of people to do it, even better. The other kind of thing that I wanted to mention that isn't necessary these days is full dates on your CV. I'd say the last 15 years are probably important to catalogue if your work history is that long. Anything before this, I see no reason why you can't have a section that just states something along the lines of, I don't know, prior to this, I was XYZ for a number of years, undertaking various duties that ultimately led me on my current career path, or something like that. And just give a little bit of basic detail. You don't really need much more than that. If you're worried that your age might go against you, and it shouldn't with age discrimination laws, I'd suggest kind of removing academic dates too. They just aren't needed if you've got a long career history, and they serve only to potentially aid discrimination. Avoid that where you can. Professional qualifications, they're a little bit different really, so it's dependent on the importance of them within your role. You may want to date them. That's a bit of a tougher one. And when it comes to kind of data, it leads me to things like your date of birth, your national insurance number, the number of dependents, and that kind of thing on your CV. We live in a world where your personal data is incredibly valuable in the wrong hands. So when you upload your CV to a job site and have all this information on it, you're exposing this level of data completely unnecessarily. End employers don't need your national insurance number for a job interview. They don't need your date of birth either, or your dependents. And the rule of thumb is, if it's not needed for a job interview, avoid putting it on your CV. Do what you can to protect your data. I protect your data as carefully as I do my own, but I know that my hands are safe. I can't vouch for anyone else's, so you've got to do what you can to minimise those potential breaches. The other one I always want to tell people about is contact details in the header and footer of your CV. Most of the CVs that I open in preview mode because it's quicker than opening an actual document, whether that's Word or PDF, and it means I can get through CVs faster to find yours. If I do this and it's my job to read CVs and review them, then I can bet my bottom dollar that HR departments are likely to as well. Their job is much more diverse. It's not just recruitment. So they've got a much wider work scope than me. So if they're recruiting direct, there's a strong chance that they'll use this time saver too, which means your contact details won't be seen. This preview mode also affects formatting on your CV. So again, if you've got fancy layouts and tables or tabs everywhere, it's likely going to come up a bit skew with, and so it's just less readable. And these in themselves, they won't be deal breakers, but when you're a manager or a HR person who's on the clock trying to, get through a ton of CVs before you've got to get a report done, or you've got to get payroll done, or you've got a meeting to attend, you might just skip that CV and maybe come back to it later if you get time, and then, move on to the next one, which isn't what you want after submitting your CV for a role you're keen on. So it's worth keeping standard formatting throughout, and contact details again in the main body of your CV. And don't forget, I mentioned in the client survey we did a few years back that easy on the eye aesthetics were high on the list of wants on a CV, and maybe this is the reason why. Which leads me to the last thing I think is quite important when you're job hunting, and that's to make sure that you've got, a super fit for purpose master copy of your CV. And that never changes. It's your master copy. Then each time you apply for a role, you tweak that master copy and you make it relevant to the role that you're applying for. Really look at the opportunity and see where you can place your skills in line with the needs of the job, and then make sure those are on the CV. Then what you do is save the tailored, the tweaked CV with a file name of maybe the job title of the role, the company, and the date you've sent it. And that way, if you get an interview, you can take the right copy to the interview with you. It's absolutely vital that you don't lie when doing this. I can almost guarantee you'll get found out one way or another. And if you get a job on the basis of a lie, you're always going to have to lie, and that is no mean feat. The other thing is you'll likely fail if you've over-egged your capabilities, and then you won't pass your probation, or you'll feel like the role is too hard because your skills don't align with the needs of the job, and that'll just put you under more stress and pressure. Then you'll likely eventually leave. You'll look like a job hopper that nobody wants to employ. It's just not worth it. It really isn't. A job should be enjoyable for the most part, and you should want to get up for work in the mornings, and not dread it. And I'm not talking about skipping to work here. We work because we have to. So when you start dreading going in, it really is time to move on. And of course, that's when you come to me. Okay, so that's kind of the end of this week's candidate chapter. I really do hope you found it useful. It's what I do for a living at the end of the day. So if you are in senior sales, if you're in sales management or senior leadership with engineering and manufacturing and want to talk to me about your career moving forwards, I'll happily take a look at your CV and have a look at where the marketplace might take you and offer a bit of career strategy planning, I guess. Just book into my diary for an initial conversation, and I'll pop the link in the comments below, and let's see what we can do. My initial consults take about 30-45 minutes, and it's completely free. It's just you and me really talking about anything you want to talk about, whether that's current employment, where you want to go in the future, how best to navigate your employment decisions moving forward. And I've been doing this the last 20 odd years, so believe me, I know what I'm doing here. So yeah, I'll pop the link in the comments below if you need me. Give me a shout. And that's pretty much this week's burst over with. As usual, there's no daily quick burst on a Friday, so I will see you all Monday. In the meantime, please stay well, stay safe, stay positive, and have a lovely weekend. Thank you, everybody.